This is Rumi's guide to getting started with grazing management. We'll be sharing tips and tricks to help you improve your farm profitability and resilience. In this video, we'll be looking at how to manage a pasture surplus. A pasture surplus is when the growth on farm exceeds animal demand. And that's most likely to first occur in the spring. And when it does occur, we tend to call that event Magic Day. Magic Day is when the farm's growing more feed than the animals require. That means that any supplementary feed can be removed and that animals can grow to their full potential. But as that surplus builds, and we generally find this is the case as we head through May and into June, pasture quality can start to deteriorate. When we start to notice the farm's getting into that position, and the easiest way we can tell that is by taking some pasture measurements, and a tool like Rumi is really useful because that satellite pasture cover combined with a knowledge of what the animal demand is allows you to determine when you've reached Magic Day and how much of a surplus you're starting to generate on farm. Some of the management tools we have when we have a surplus of pasture on farm, or we can take an area of the farm out and save it for silage or for hay. If we've made enough feed for the winter and we don't need to make any more silage or hay, we may start to look at other options. So when there's a surplus of pasture, it might give us the opportunity to rejuvenate a sward. Take a pasture that's not performing out of our rotation and reseed it by whatever means we think is the most effective, and then bring it back in later on in that season. We can also use some low-cost techniques like standing hay. Standing hay is allowing the pasture from sort of June onwards to continue growing but not to mow it, to leave it to stand in the field, i.e. become standing hay. It's a very low-cost way of transferring feed from a month where you've got a surplus to a month where you may have a deficit. You certainly don't want to be spreading any nitrogen fertiliser because that will make the surplus worse. And you also ought to be removing any concentrate or any purchase feed being fed to stock and allowing them to open up and to be fully fed on pasture alone and to offer them maximal intakes. So that generally means moving animals perhaps sometimes more regularly, providing slightly less rest period, and quite often leaving a bit of grass behind to be utilised on the next round so the animals are fully fed. If you're using a grazing management app like Rumi, then it's really useful because it will help you calculate your animal demand, and it's also giving you an indication of your farm growth, and it's also helping you track your average farm cover. And so once you've got those numbers to hand, they're useful for making management decisions, but also you can sort of kind of look at some guidelines. So if average farm cover starts to track above 2,500 kilos of dry matter per hectare, that's a real indication that you're going to start to lose quality. And then you can start to take some management decisions around how we're going to manage that. Are we taking fields out for silage or for hay? Are we going to defer some of those fields into standing hay? And if we are, which fields? And what are they going to be grazed with afterwards? So it puts you in a position of real control to make decisions and to manage that surplus effectively so that you get enough feed for the winter without spending more money on wrap and net than you need to. Your animals remain fully fed because you've maintained the quality. So it becomes a really useful sort of strategic piece that allows you to get through that period of surplus and have a high animal performance during that period, because as we said, that's when you're making the most profit on the farm.
Improve your soil health and increase your farm's productivity. Get started with Rumi today by clicking on the link in the description.